Skylar never believed in love at first sight. As a pragmatic software engineer, she preferred logic and reason to flights of fancy. But the moment she locked eyes with Josiah across the crowded coffee shop, something shifted inside her. It was a typical Monday morning, and Skylar had stopped in for her usual latte before heading to the office. As she waited impatiently in line, tapping her foot, she felt an inexplicable urge to look up from her phone. That's when she saw him, tall, with tousled dark hair and striking green eyes that seemed to pierce right through her. For a moment, the bustling cafe faded away, and it was just the two of them, connected by an invisible thread. Skylar felt her breath catch in her throat. Then someone jostled her from behind, breaking the spell. By the time she collected herself and looked back, the mysterious stranger was gone. Skylar tried to shake off the encounter as she hurried to work, chalking it up to too much caffeine and too little sleep. But she couldn't stop thinking about those mesmerizing eyes throughout her day of coding and meetings. That evening, needing to clear her head, she decided to take a walk in the park near her apartment. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching beneath her feet as she strolled along the winding path. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the jogger rounding the bend until they collided. "I'm so sorry," Skylar exclaimed, mortified. "I wasn't paying attention to where I was going." "No worries, it was my fault too," came a deep, warm voice. "I should have been more careful coming around that turn." Skylar looked up and found herself staring into those same captivating green eyes from that morning. Up close, she could see flecks of gold in their depths. The handsome stranger smiled, and her heart skipped a beat. "I'm Josiah," he said, extending his hand. "Skylar," she replied, hoping he couldn't feel how her palm was trembling slightly as she shook his hand. "This might sound crazy," Josiah said, "but I could have sworn I saw you at the coffee shop this morning. I wanted to say hello, but you disappeared before I worked up the courage." Skylar felt a flush creeping up her neck. "That was me," she admitted. "I noticed you too." They fell into easy conversation as they continued walking together through the park. Josiah was a freelance photographer, it turned out. He'd just moved to the city for a change of scenery and inspiration for his work. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Skylar found herself wishing the evening would never end. "I hate to cut this short," Josiah said reluctantly, "but I have an early shoot tomorrow. Would you maybe want to grab dinner later this week?" Skylar surprised herself by agreeing without hesitation. They exchanged numbers and parted ways, but she felt like she was floating on air as she headed home. Over the next few weeks, Skylar and Josiah began seeing each other regularly. She was captivated by his artistic soul and the way he saw beauty in the most unexpected places. He admired her brilliant mind and how she could lose herself for hours solving complex coding problems. On their fifth date, Josiah took her to a hidden rooftop garden he'd discovered while out exploring the city. As they sipped wine and gazed out at the twinkling lights of the skyline, Skylar realized she was falling hard and fast. It terrified her. She'd always been so careful with her heart, analyzing every angle before getting involved with someone, but Josiah had swept into her life like a whirlwind, upending all her carefully constructed walls. "What are you thinking about?" Josiah asked softly, reaching out to tuck a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His touch sent shivers down her spine. Skylar took a deep breath. "I'm scared," she confessed. "This is all happening so fast. I've never felt this way about anyone before." Josiah's eyes softened. "I'm scared too," he said. "But I think that's how you know it's real. When it's right, you just know." He leaned in and kissed her then, tender and sweet. Skylar melted into him, all her doubts fading away as she lost herself in the moment. From that night on, they were inseparable. Josiah's free spirit brought out a side of Skylar she never knew existed. She found herself saying yes to spontaneous weekend road trips and midnight picnics under the stars. For his part, Josiah was inspired by Skylar's drive and ambition. He started taking on more commercial work to build his portfolio. 6 blissful months flew by in the blink of an eye. Skylar had never been happier. But as their 1-year anniversary approached, cracks began to form in their seemingly perfect relationship. Josiah grew restless, feeling stifled by the routines of city life. He longed to travel, to seek out new vistas and experiences to capture through his lens. Skylar, on the other hand, was thriving in her career. She'd just been offered a major promotion that would put her on track for her dream job, but it would require even more of her time and energy. They began to argue more frequently over little things at first, but soon deeper issues bubbled to the surface. Josiah felt Skylar was too focused on work, while she thought he needed to be more practical about building a stable future. Things came to a head one rainy night in April. Josiah had been offered an opportunity to join a group of photographers on a 6-month trip around the world. It was the chance of a lifetime, but it would mean leaving Skylar behind. "I can't ask you to wait for me," Josiah said, pacing their small living room. "That wouldn't be fair, but I can't pass this up, Sky. It's what I've always dreamed of doing." Skylar felt like her heart was being torn in two. She knew how much this meant to Josiah, but the thought of being apart for so long was unbearable. "What about us?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "What about our plans?" Josiah ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I don't know," he admitted. "I love you, Skylar, more than I've ever loved anyone. But I need to do this. I need to see what's out there, to challenge myself and grow as an artist." They talked in circles for hours, voices rising and falling as emotions ran high. In the end, they reached an impasse. Josiah wouldn't give up his dream, and Skylar couldn't bring herself to ask him to stay. "Maybe this is for the best," Skylar said finally, wiping away tears. "We want different things. It's better to realize that now than further down the road." Josiah looked stricken. "Are you saying it's over?" Skylar nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Josiah gathered her in his arms one last time, holding her close as they both cried. Then he was gone, leaving Skylar alone with a shattered heart and a future suddenly devoid of colour. The next few months were the darkest of Skylar's life. She threw herself into work, pulling long hours at the office and taking on extra projects to distract herself from the aching void Josiah had left behind. Her friends worried about her, but she pushed them away, retreating into herself. As summer faded into fall, Skylar slowly began to heal. She started going out again, rediscovering old hobbies and interests she'd neglected. She even went on a few dates, though none sparked the same passion she'd felt with Josiah. 1 year to the day after their breakup, Skylar found herself back in the park where she and Josiah had first truly met. The trees were ablaze with autumn colours, a gentle breeze stirring the fallen leaves. She sat on a bench, lost in memories, when a familiar voice jolted her back to the present. "Skylar?" She looked up, hardly daring to believe it, but there he was, Josiah, looking travel-worn, but more handsome than ever. Her heart leapt into her throat. "Josiah," she breathed, "what are you doing here?" He sat down beside her, close enough that she could smell his familiar scent of sandalwood and citrus. "I just got back," he said. "I was hoping I might run into you here." They talked for hours, the sun sinking low in the sky as Josiah recounted his adventures. He'd seen wonders beyond imagining, he told her, but something had been missing the whole time. "I realized that no matter how beautiful the sunset or how majestic the mountains, none of it meant anything if I couldn't share it with you," Josiah said, taking her hand. "I'm so sorry, Sky. I was foolish to think I needed to choose between my dreams and our love. You are my dream." Skylar's eyes filled with tears. "I've missed you so much," she whispered. Josiah cupped her face in his hands, thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you, if you'll let me," he vowed. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home. Skylar knew they still had a lot to work through, but in that moment, everything felt right in the world again. Over the next few months, Skylar and Josiah slowly rebuilt their relationship. They took things slow, relearning each other and addressing the issues that had driven them apart before. Josiah started taking more local photography jobs, building a name for himself in the city's art scene. Skylar found ways to achieve better work-life balance, making more time for the things and people she loved. As winter melted into spring, Josiah surprised Skylar with a weekend getaway to the mountains. They hiked to a secluded waterfall, marvelling at the raw beauty of nature. At the top, Josiah got down on one knee and proposed with a ring he'd designed himself, featuring a diamond he'd panned for during his travels. Skylar said yes through happy tears, and they began planning their future together. They decided to buy a quaint fixer-upper on the outskirts of the city, giving them the best of both worlds: proximity to Skylar's work and the natural beauty that fed Josiah's creativity. Their wedding day dawned bright and clear the following autumn. They exchanged vows in the very park where their love story had begun, surrounded by family and friends. Josiah's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes, as he promised to always choose Skylar every single day. "You are my greatest adventure," he said, voice thick with emotion. "My muse, my home, my everything. I can't wait to spend the rest of our lives exploring this beautiful world together." As they sealed their union with a kiss, Skylar felt a sense of profound rightness settle over her. She and Josiah had weathered storms and come out stronger for it. Their love wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and sometimes difficult, but it was real, and it was theirs. In the years that followed, Skylar and Josiah built a life filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. They travelled often, Josiah capturing breathtaking images while Skylar worked remotely when she could. They welcomed 2 children, a boy and a girl, who inherited their father's artistic eye and their mother's quick mind. There were challenges, of course. Balancing careers and family life wasn't always easy. They still argued sometimes, 2 strong-willed individuals learning to compromise and grow together. But at the end of each day, they fell asleep in each other's arms, grateful for the love they'd found and fought to keep. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Josiah gifted Skylar with a photo album chronicling their journey together. The final page held a recent family portrait, the 4 of them laughing on the beach at sunset. Beneath it, Josiah had written a simple caption: "The greatest adventure of all." Skylar traced her fingers over the words, heart overflowing with love. She thought back to that fateful day in the coffee shop, the instant connection that had started it all. She'd been skeptical of love at first sight back then, but now she knew better. Sometimes, when you least expect it, love finds you. And if you're brave enough to take the leap, it can lead to the most beautiful journey of all. As she closed the album and looked up at her husband, Skylar felt a renewed sense of excitement for whatever the future might hold. With Josiah by her side, she was ready for anything. Their love story was far from over. In many ways, it felt like they were just getting started. That night, as they lay tangled together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Skylar whispered, "Thank you for choosing me, for choosing us." Josiah pulled her closer, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Always," he murmured, "in this life and the next." Skylar drifted off to sleep with a smile on her face, secure in the knowledge that she'd found her forever love. It hadn't been an easy road, but every twist and turn had led them right where they were meant to be, together. As the years passed, Skylar and Josiah's love only deepened. They faced new challenges and celebrated countless joys, always with each other by their side. Their children grew into kind, creative young adults who made them endlessly proud. Josiah's photography career flourished, his unique perspective earning him international acclaim. Skylar continued climbing the corporate ladder, eventually becoming CEO of a major tech company. But no matter how busy life got, they always made time for each other. They still took spontaneous weekend trips, chasing sunsets and making memories. Date nights were sacred, whether they involved fancy restaurants or simply cuddling on the couch with takeout. They never stopped learning and growing together, taking cooking classes, trying new hobbies, and having long talks about their hopes and dreams. As they entered their golden years, Skylar and Josiah's love took on a quieter, deeper quality. They could communicate volumes with just a look or a touch. They cherished simple moments: morning coffee on the porch, evening walks hand in hand, lazy Sundays spent reading side by side. On their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and a lifetime of friends, Josiah raised a toast to his beloved wife. "Skylar," he said, voice wavering slightly with age, but eyes still bright with adoration. "You have made every single day of the past 50 years an adventure. Thank you for taking a chance on a scruffy photographer all those years ago. Thank you for your patience, your strength, your unwavering support. I fall more in love with you with each passing day." Skylar, silver-haired but still radiant, squeezed his hand as happy tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'd choose you again in a heartbeat," she said, 1,000 times over. That night, as they slow danced under the stars just like they had at their wedding, Skylar marveled at the beautiful life they'd built together. It wasn't always easy, and it wasn't always perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs, and she wouldn't have changed a single moment. As the music faded and Josiah held her close, Skylar knew with absolute certainty that this enduring, all-encompassing love was what fairy tales were really made of. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but a lifetime of choosing each other day after day, of facing life's storms together and emerging stronger on the other side. In that moment, wrapped in the arms of the man who had been her partner in all things for half a century, Skylar felt profoundly grateful for the twist of fate that had brought them together, for the courage they'd found to fight for their love, for every precious second they'd shared. And she knew without a doubt that their greatest adventure was still unfolding, one day at a time, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever. As the years passed, Skylar and Josiah's love only deepened and matured. They faced life's challenges together, drawing strength from the bond they had forged through adversity. Their home became a haven of warmth and laughter, filled with the pitter-patter of little feet as they welcomed 2 children into their family. Josiah's photography career continued to flourish, his unique perspective earning him international acclaim. He travelled the world capturing breathtaking images, but always returned home to Skylar, his greatest muse and inspiration. For her part, Skylar's brilliance in software engineering led her to become a respected leader in her field, eventually founding her own successful tech company. Despite their busy lives, they never lost sight of what truly mattered. Date nights remained sacred, whether they involved fancy restaurants or simply cuddling on the couch with takeout. They made time for spontaneous weekend getaways, chasing sunsets and making memories just as they had in the early days of their relationship. As their children grew, Skylar and Josiah worked to instill in them the values that had seen them through their own struggles. Honesty, perseverance, and above all, the power of love to overcome any obstacle. They shared their story openly, using their past mistakes as teachable moments about the importance of communication and trust. Their home became a gathering place for friends and family, always open to those in need of support or a listening ear. Skylar and Josiah found joy in mentoring young couples, sharing the hard-earned wisdom of their journey. On their 25th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows in the very park where their love story had begun. Surrounded by loved ones, including their now teenage children, they reaffirmed their commitment to each other. Josiah's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes as he spoke of the unwavering love and support Skylar had shown him through the years. "You are still my greatest adventure," he said, voice thick with emotion. "My anchor, my home, my everything. I fall more in love with you with each passing day, and I can't wait to see what the next 25 years bring." Skylar, her eyes shining with happy tears, responded in kind. "Josiah, you taught me the true meaning of love, not just the passionate beginnings, but the deep, abiding connection that grows stronger through every trial and triumph. I choose you, today and always." As they sealed their renewed vows with a kiss, cheers erupted from their gathered loved ones. Their children rolled their eyes good-naturedly at their parents' public display of affection, but couldn't hide their smiles of pride and joy. The years continued to pass, bringing new joys and challenges. They celebrated their children's graduations, careers, and eventually, weddings of their own. They welcomed grandchildren with open arms, delighting in the chance to share their love and wisdom with a new generation. Even as they entered their golden years, Skylar and Josiah's love remained vibrant and strong. They still held hands as they took their evening walks, stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking. Their children often marveled at the depth of their connection, hoping to emulate that same enduring love in their own relationships. On quiet nights, they would sit on their porch swing, wrapped in a cozy blanket as they gazed at the stars. They'd reminisce about their journey, The coffee shop encounter that started it all, the painful separation that had nearly torn them apart, and the unwavering love that had seen them through it all. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found our way back to each other? Skylar asked one such evening, her head resting on Josiah's shoulder. Josiah was quiet for a moment, his fingers intertwined with hers. Sometimes, he admitted, but then I look at the life we've built together, at our beautiful family, and I know that this was always meant to be. We were always meant to find our way back to each other. Skylar smiled, feeling the familiar warmth of love and contentment wash over her. I'm so grateful we did, she murmured. Every day with you is still an adventure. As they sat there, bathed in the soft glow of the porch light, Skylar and Josiah knew that their love story was far from over. There would be more challenges to face, more joys to celebrate, more memories to create. But they would face it all together, just as they always had. Their love had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs. It had grown from a spark of attraction to a deep, abiding connection that touched every aspect of their lives. And as they looked to the future, they did so with hearts full of hope and excitement for whatever lay ahead. For Skylar and Josiah, their greatest adventure was still unfolding, one day at a time, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever, and they wouldn't have it any other way.